Hello, welcome back to my channel, Silver Thread Sewing. I'm Diane, and this is Friday Sews. So the first thing I would say is thank you to Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room for starting the hashtag Friday Sews. I certainly look forward to watching my favorites every Friday and finding new ones every Friday. So I hope you do too. I won't take but a few minutes of your time. I wanted to go over just a few little odds and ends that has been going on since a couple days ago when I talked to you last. I had mentioned first, I want to say thank you to everybody who has commented and offered suggestions on how I could fix this top. This is the Butterick 6662 pattern that I've been working on forever. And it was the bottom view C with the tie front. I had several suggestions that I probably needed to size down in that pattern, that it looked like it was just too big all over. And also, most everybody agreed that the bow probably needed to go. It was like it was just dragging the front down, and it was so low I couldn't have worn it. It was so low. So I wound up taking the seam apart, and I took all the facing out around the neck, all of it. Just took it all apart, and I took the top to my sewing table, and I just drawed a chalk mark line from about midway up the front of the top in the center seam up to where I wanted the V to end. I had tried it on, and I had put a pin and all that. So I started cutting out, but I was kind of cautious about cutting out too much because I was afraid I would get it too tight or too small, or misshaped or something, because I had a lot of fabric in this area. So I would go and mark a line, and then I would go over to the sewing machine and baste a seam, try it on again, and I would then take, put another pin where it could go to and how much I needed to take out in fullness. Go back, cut a little bit more, pin it, go back to the machine and sew it, baste it. I didn't sew a seam to stay. I just basted it, tried it on again, and I did that about 3 times before I finally got it to starting to look right, in the neck to be okay. And I didn't want to take any more out because I was afraid of making it a little too snug, but I took quite a bit of the fullness out. And I also went in and took a little bit larger seam from probably right here around the top of the sleeve, and all I did was just take a little more seam allowance in that area, and that kind of pulled the sleeve up where it needed to go. Now I'm going to put pictures right here to show you how it looks now, and I still have one little area right here in the front that is kind of poochy. It's just, I guess I didn't, when I was trying to grade it back into that front seam, I believe that what I did, I think what I did, is I probably didn't, I don't know, I didn't go back into the seam straight enough or smoothly enough. I made a little bit of a bow. So I still have just a little bit of fullness right here, but I kind of have a little bit of fullness in that area in my tummy. So I kind of thought, well, maybe that's not a bad thing. But I wore this on Tuesday. I wore it Tuesday to a graduation event for my grandson, and I wore a pink sweater over it, but I like the way it looks. It's not nearly as big, and you'll see that in the pictures that I put in. It would look better today if I had on better jeans or better pants. Because I've just got on what I've had on today, but I wanted to put this, I just got it out of the wash. So wanted to show you, but it does look better, and it doesn't have a bow now, and I like that. The front, the center front, still looks a little too long to me, and I don't know. I mean, I cut the pattern right the way it was supposed to be, straight across, but it's like it just goes down right there. So maybe it was a little bit on the bias and that's dropped. I don't know. But I've gotten so many great suggestions and so many people trying to help me fix this poor little shirt. I don't like to give up on anything. you know, I've paid money for the pattern, I paid money for the fabric, and you put a lot of time and effort. I traced the pattern so I didn't waste the pattern or mess that up, and that took time and material. And I just hate to give up. I'm like my daddy in that regard. I think I'm just determined, and I want it to work, and I don't want to wind up having to discard something. I have a little. I keep all my fabric scraps in a little bin back here, and I'm saving all the little tiny scraps. If I can't use them for another project of some sort, I either make bias binding out of the ones that are big enough, or I'm saving the tiny scraps, and I want to make the closet core pouf. It looks like a little round ottoman, but you can stuff all your fabric scraps and garment things in it, and that's my goal, is to, when I get enough scraps, so I'm not throwing anything away. But still, I didn't want to waste this, and I wanted to have something, and I really do need the top, so I will wear this for every day. I probably wouldn't wear it to, you know, anything too well, I don't go to anything fancy. I don't know what I'm thinking I'm going to be going to, you know, a dinner party or something. But, you know, if I wanted to be a little more dressed up, I probably wouldn't wear it, simply because it's got this little poof and it looks a little too long. I may go in and remove the hem and level that all back up. That would make it look better, I think. And I probably will do that, but I probably am not going to do it this week. Because, to be honest with you, I'm getting a little sick of this top. I'm just fold with it. However, I today, after talking to some of you kind people in the comments and thinking about it and watching the video from Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles, I have watched that video so many times, and she's in this particular, and I'm going to link to that below, to her video. I could never explain it, and I could never show it. I don't have camera equipment, and I don't have the knowledge. You know, I'm self-taught. I'm right here with you guys. I'm learning as we go, as many of us are. And I have learned most of what little bit I know from YouTube and from my sewing books. So I would never try to explain her method of doing this, but she talks about the vertical adjustments and how we need to do the vertical ones first. So I went upstairs today. My husband was gone for a while, and I didn't have anybody here to help me. The Beagle was here, but she doesn't get into sewing too much. She likes to get up on the table and look at my machine when it's not on, but other than that, she doesn't help. So I got the bright idea that I was going to work on this, and I was determined. So I went upstairs in the bathroom, and I could see in the mirror, and I took this piece of paper and my measuring tape, and this is one, my measuring tape is, I think it's kind of cool. It came from Waywack, I don't know, I'll show you the end of it. Came from waywack.com, and it has all the markings on it. It has from 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, half, 5/8, 3/4, and 7/8. I can't see. Then the 1-inch markings. But it has all those little markings, and that really helps me to see what I'm doing and kind of to be a little bit more precise. So anyway, I took this little measuring tape upstairs, and I took my pencil and a Sharpie. And I stood in the mirror, and I just had on my underwear. So I won't show you that, promise. Don't leave. I took my little measuring tape, and I did what Karina had suggested, and I first measured from the divot right here in each side of my neck, from side to side, and got the measurement for my neck width. And then I started from that point, and I measured out to the tip of my shoulder. And then I went from the tip of my shoulder to the high bust, which is right even pretty much with the armpit. I measured that in vertically, and then I measured from that point to the apex, and then I measured from the top of my shoulder to the apex. Then I measured the underbust, and then I measured from that point to the waist. from the waist to the hip. And I think that's all that I did. And then I decided that I needed to know about my shoulder slope. Well, when you're by yourself and you don't know what you're doing anyway, you figure things out. So I took my little Sharpie and I took this little piece of paper and stood up against the wall, and I could still see myself in the mirror. And I put this paper behind my neck and shoulder. And the first mark that I did is pretty terrible. I'm ashamed to even show you, but I told you I was going to be honest with you. So this mark here was my first attempt, and it was pitiful. So I tried again, and this bottom mark is pretty good. It's pretty good. And so I measured that and marked it out on another piece of paper. And I'm going to put in either a little video clip of that if I can get it to show you what I took. I had a piece of, I want to say that it's Swedish tracing paper, but I'm not sure if that's what it's called, so I'm not going to say that. It's a piece of tracing paper that has like little plus signs and numbers and some letters possibly. It has markings on it, and I'll show you that. But it keeps you straight. They're each of those little markings are at 1 inch, so it's a gridded paper with those little markings. And what I did, I started out from the top, and I would mark, since that I was doing it in half. I wanted a half scale of my measurements, but I was very careful to get all my vertical markings on the paper, and then I went back with a little clear ruler and I put in my circumference measurements, half of my full circumference. And then I took a Sharpie and I drew those lines out, and then got to thinking, well, the pattern is actually a quarter. Most patterns would be a quarter of my circumference. So I went back and marked everything at a half and just put a line so I would know that that would be, you know, from center front to the side of the pattern would be 1/4 of a front bodice, for instance, or 1/4 of the back because it would be put on the fold or the center back. So I've got that down, and next I'm going to try to go in and do the measurement for my arm side. Peggy Sagers has another video. It's an old video, and I've watched it several times, and at one point I had made a little template for the front of my armhole, and she tells you how to do that, and I'm going to link, I think I've learned how to link another video, so I'm going to link her video where she talks about sleeves and armholes. I'm going to link that below so you guys can watch it, and I'm sure you'll understand what to do better than I do. But I'll show you my little flat paper that I have this stuff drawn out and wrote on, and that way when I take, for instance, a bodice, I can lay that bodice down, and I know that the side is straight, so that would be center front, and I can see where that falls on my measurements vertically and horizontally. So I'm hoping, and I already could tell that my measurements were at least 1 inch. My measurements are 1 inch higher than the pattern that I tested it on, which was this Butterick 6662 pattern. So I already know that was one of my problems. The other problem most likely is where I had made too big a size, but I still think that there was just too much fabric in that bow. I don't think all that was error on my part. Some of it definitely was, but some of that I do believe is, it just got too much fabric. The bow is too big. It's too wide or too high, and the part coming out where it comes out of the shirt into the bow is too thick. I think it could be done way better by taking some of that width out. But I did have a message from Jen today in Jen's sewing room, and she said that she has that pattern, and after I had trouble with it, she is going to go in and try it herself. So if it is all my error, she will be the one to know that, because she's really good at all that and knows what she's doing. So hopefully she'll be able to do that soon, and she'll have a video, I hope, talking about that because it's such a pretty pattern. But I'm going to lay it aside for now. I'm going to put it down and I'm going to move on to something else. But I'm going to, I have the Simplicity pattern. So I have the Simplicity 9546. And I am working on version A, which is just a little bit longer than version B. And it also has a different sleeve. So I am making that version. But I decided, instead of trying to rush and get right into another garment, I'm going to work on this pattern business, on this measurement business, so that I can know where that pattern's going to fall, you know, on my measurements, on my vertical measurements as well as circumference. I think it's worth doing. I think it's worth spending that time. I need a visual. Like I had said a couple days ago, I would love to have one of the Ditto dress forms, just because it would be so much easier to look at, you know, an image of what your body looks like. And, you know, you can move things up and down. You could take that pattern and find these points and see what's going. It just seems like it would make so much sense. Well, that's not in my budget anytime soon. So I'm going to fix this flat pattern of my body enough. It won't be perfect, but it will be enough so I can at least see how much difference there is in that pattern piece and where my measurements fall. That's a long-winded explanation. And I'm sorry, but you all have been so great to try to help me with that. And I thought, you know, this is something that maybe we could all benefit from. Not that I have it figured out, that's for sure, but you all have been so good about telling me your suggestions and some of the struggles you had that are kind of like mine. You know, it's hit and miss. You spend all this money and time and you want this garment to wear and you're excited. But then when you sew it up, it doesn't fit. And it's not, it can't be that difficult. It can't be impossible. And I think that we can get there. I'm determined to get there. And besides, we've got too much fabric to quit now. But don't tell my husband because he doesn't think I have any. So anyway, I'm going to be working on this. But I'm going to take another day or so and work on my little diagram for myself. But I will show you how that looks. And the last thing, I had shown the Dritz loop turner set. I didn't have that in the past. And I had gotten it this week. It came in. And I had someone say they had it, but they weren't sure how to use it, and asked if I would kind of do a little demonstration of that. It will be very, very rudimentary. It will be, yeah, it'll be basic because I don't have a fancy camera or anything over my table or any of that. So it'll be kind of, you know, me sitting here showing you by hand. But I did say that I would do that, and I'm glad to do it, and I'm glad that my friend asked, so I'll be glad to do that. And I'll try to insert that here. So, I think I have yapped on long enough. Mostly, a lot of it is life because it's my sewing life. But I will say, thanks for everybody who has been praying and asking about my dad. I just left there a little while ago and visited with him. He's sleeping some today, but they said, you know, the nurse said he was up all night. You just can't do anything with him. He gets so anxious and doesn't understand that he can't stand where he broke his hip. So he falls if they don't, you know, if they don't try to keep him either in bed or in a chair. And, so it's hard because he doesn't understand that, and he's still very confused. But he did seem to know me. He held my hand and said, well, hey, honey, it's good to see you. And I said, well, it's good to see you, Daddy. Are you okay? And he said, I'm a little cold. So I said, well, do you want me to cover you up? And he said, yeah, I want you to cover me. So I put the blanket and stuff up over him, and by the time I got him covered up, he went to sleep, and I couldn't get him to wake back up. He was snoring, so he was tired. And but I did get to see him, and hopefully he'll remember that I was there. But But yeah, it's okay. And I don't know if you noticed or not, I've had a haircut this week. My daughter has been cutting my hair for about 3 years now. And she's not a beautician, and she doesn't have any formal training, but back when all the beauty salons and things were closed, I'm real bad to get be in my bonnet and want my hair cut, and if I can't get anybody to cut it, I just cut it myself. So yeah, I have scissors. I know how to use scissors, but she will say, Mama, no, just don't cut your own hair. So she started cutting my hair, and she has gotten really, really good at it. She really has. My hair is super fine and straight as a stick. And until the last couple of years, it was just as black as coal. But I've started getting gray this past couple of years, and so she's been cutting it for me, and I've never dyed it or anything. I've thought about it, but it's too much maintenance, and I just, who's got time for that? I've got sewing I need to be doing. So on the life front, that's about it. I'm still in the process of spring cleaning, but I've got all my curtains washed, dried, and put up, and the windows are all clean, and all the screens are clean. So that's probably 40% of it now. Now comes the floors and the dusting and the washing everything, and all my strawberries need to be cleaned. So I'm going to get at that. But I'll keep you posted on my progress on this this little adventure of measuring and trying to make something that I can use in the future. But I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you commenting, and I just appreciate all the advice and all the help, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you. Have a great weekend wherever you are, and I hope you're well, and I will see you soon. Bye. Okay, so we're kind of going to be learning this together. I've not used mine. I just took it out of the pack, but I know the premise of it. There's 3 different sizes: 3/16, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. I'm going to be using the 3/16 and the 1/2 inch, which is the smallest and the largest. Now, everything that I see on the directions show that what you're turning, your tube, is sewn across one end. So it's closed at one end. Now, if you had one that was not sewn across the end, what I would do is go ahead and make it just a little longer than you needed. I can't think of an example of why you might need one that's open on both ends, but just make it a little bit longer, sew across the end, and then once you get it turned, just snip it off. That's what I plan to do if I run into that problem. But I'm going to tilt this thing down, hopefully, and not drop it, and try to show how this works. And I don't know how this will work. Okay. Okay, it's the Dritz Quick Turn tools. And I'm going to try the largest one first, because I've not done this before. So what I think that you do, you insert one end into your tube, and you work all your little tube up there. So the closed end is there. And then I'm taking, there's a pointy end, a sharp end, and a more blunt end. I'm going to use the blunt end. And you just push that down through the tube. Look at that. And you just, and look at that. Your tube is turned. And then bring this out. And I think you could use this pointy end to poke your corners out. Gently, of course. And quick as a wink, my tube is turned. You would press it and you'd be good to go. Now let's try the smaller one, if I can get it where you can see it. Okay, take the little metal rod out. This is the smaller little tube. This is more like This is a little bigger than you probably would use for like a rouleau loop. I think that's what you call those guys. But I'm taking the end, hopefully. This is a real class operation we've got going on here, folks, I'm telling you. Okay, you insert this little purple part into the tube, and you take this little metal rod. I'm trying to make sure you can see, and I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm holding the end of that, and I'm inserting through that tube, and then you will start seeing. And there you go. And then just take that out. You take it and press it, and you'll have a pretty good little loop. I hope I got that halfway till you can see it.